Good morning, I hope everyone's well today. Thank you for watching, it is appreciated. If you find value in this video, consider liking and subscribing, it does help the channel out a lot. Trump may have just played a blinder with his plans to impose tariffs on 8 European nations, including the United Kingdom, which is what I'm going to get into in this video. Cards on the table first of all, I am a Brexiteer. I voted for Brexit in 2016, and I would vote Brexit again. My major issue with the European Union is not immigration, although it is an additional factor, maybe a secondary or tertiary issue for me. My reason is trade. I'll give you an example. I got gifted this French version of The Abyss on 4K for Christmas. It was imported from France, so the person who imported it had to pay over the odds to get it for me because it's not been released in the UK. Why should a general population of any country pay to be part of a club that removes those trade barriers and restrictions for imports or exports? Why should everyone pay for that? It should be the individual that wants the movie, that wants the goods, to pay the cost of that. That's the whole point of tariffs. It's a revenue stream, and it's done for two reasons. It's done to protect domestic business, those that don't trade with the foreign entity, and it's done for a revenue stream. So just on those points, the argument for tariffs is pretty rock solid. The only people that benefit from tariffs being taken down trade barriers are companies or individuals that do major trade with the part of the world, whether that's the European Union or the United States. It's the people that do business with these countries that benefit, not the little guy, not the little man or woman, or the small business that doesn't do any trade. That aside, that's why I'm a fan of tariffs, because it protects the individual, and it's a safeguard against collectivism, which is why Trump's tariff plan is a blinder. The countries that he's going to sanction are Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, UK, Netherlands and Finland. 10% tariffs on 8 European countries starting in February, rising to 25% in June until Denmark agrees to sell Greenland. This is where it gets interesting, and you need to stay until the end of the video because there's more interesting points I'm going to bring up. First thing, when you look at trade deficits or trade with America, if you look at Denmark is more dependent on trade to the USA than on China for trade. Mention China because it's important, particularly when considering overall trade volume, export markets, economic significance, including trade surpluses and strategic importance. Here's a breakdown of the most recent data, 2023-24 figures, from sources like the Observatory, blah, blah, blah. Trade and Economists, Statistics, Denmark, and other trade reports. Trade figures. Total Danish exports about 123 to 36 billion, and about 126 billion in imports. And then you look at the EU as a whole. Okay, this is all 27 nations in the EU. They're actually more dependent on China. This is where the conflict of interest is with Greenland. The European Union as a whole is more dependent on China than on the USA for trade, in terms of overall vulnerability and structural imbalance. But the picture is more nuanced. The USA is more important export market, which is where the tariffs come in, an overall top trading partner, while China dominates imports, i.e. the European Union likes to import cheap tat from China that's made with slave labour under a communist government. And these are meant to be the good guys. These are meant to be the guys that we are rooting for because they are for the little man and little woman. This assessment is based on the latest available data in 2024, full year figures from Eurostat, with trends extending to 2025 amid US tariffs. Alright, then we look into the UK. The UK is significantly more dependent on the United States for trade than China. This conclusion holds when looking at total trade, goods, services, exports, and imports, which provides the fullest picture of economic interdependence, given that the UK's service-dominated economy, financial services, etc. So from that, what I'm gathering here is that individual countries, I would say the most westernized countries in the European Union or on the continent of Europe, are more dependent on the United States. And I would say that the European Union is hooked on cheap imports from China, from communists. This is a strategic masterstroke from Trump. What it does, it exposes a friction in the European Union. It exposes, because these countries, lest we forget, that have the tariffs placed on them, these countries, they can't move unilaterally against the United States. They have to move as the EU 27. This is the issue. There's countries in Europe that haven't been levied with sanctions. However, the European Union as a bloc will levy a blanket tariff to the United States. What's that going to do? It's going to create tension and it's going to create resentment from the countries on the continent of Europe in the EU that haven't been sanctioned. And let's look at this now. There's 4 countries, Italy, Poland, Hungary, and Austria, that Trump wants to leave the European Union. He could collapse the entire European continent to the European projects and make Europe great again. I, for one, would welcome this. I, for one, would be out with the street party if the European Union collapsed tomorrow. The fact of the matter is, there's been no general convergence with the members of the European Union. There's been a lot of immigration from the poorer countries in the European Union to the wealthier countries, which is why migration is a major issue. And this story is also in the United Kingdom, because I voted for Brexit because of the disparity of the southeast and London compared to the rest of the country. And this holds here as well. Economists say that Britain is no longer a rich country. After 15 years of stagnation, there are parts of Britain that are poorer than Slovenia or Lithuania. Let's have a look now. A few economists disagree that mass migration has reduced per head wealth, and this could receive more benefits than they pay into the UK. So the benefit of the tariffs, just to sum up, it could collapse the European continent, the European Union. It could make us less dependent on China, which is a great thing, and it exposes the weakness, because the European Union would be happy to give Greenland to China, because the European Union collectively, as a bloc, is dependent on China. But individually, Denmark is dependent on the United States, so there's a tension there as well. Officially, the party line from Denmark is hands off Greenland. However, the economic reality of the situation is Denmark cannot afford to develop Greenland. And so it falls to, do you want America to develop Greenland and keep the resources in the West? Or do you want China to develop Greenland and let the communists add it to the Belt and Road Initiative? So it could collapse Europe, the European Union. It could make people realise that individuals should pay tariffs, individual countries should pay tariffs, rather than a collective bloc. It could sway a lot more people towards capitalism instead of communism. This is my thought. It should be with the individual, not with the collective. This is my plan, and this is my idea, this is my theory, this is what Trump is thinking, in my opinion. He wants to collapse the European Union. He wants to make Europe great again. He wants to make sure that Greenland is dependent on the West and not China. And how is any of this a bad thing? With the way that he's going in, I don't actually think he's going to implement the tariffs, but it creates all these frictions that people aren't looking at. They're not looking at the big picture. they're looking at the tariffs and saying Trump bad, Trump evil, Trump evil, 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 Orange Man bad essentially. I'm saying, well, look at the benefits that could rise from it. We could see individual liberty in the European continent come back. We could see us become less dependent on China, because I, for one, used to have a tin opener when it was made in the UK. It would last 15 years? Now, they're all imported from China. They're cheap, they are cheap tasks, and you've got to replace them every 2 seconds. That's just one example. Now, obviously, your mileage may vary, but I do think Trump has played an absolute blinder. Now, if you think I've made some good points in this video, make me aware, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. You have a good day.